Happy Friday and good evening to all of you out there. Welcome back to Clown Wizard Studios. My name is Kyle J. Field, and we're going to do another Westeros banner. Tonight, we're going to do the House Lannister of Casterly Rock in the Westerlands, a golden lion on a crimson field. Got all my stuff ready, so let's get started. As you can see, I already have the design finished. This is what is known as a lion rampant, which means lion standing up. I just looked up the description in the book to see if there was any indication of how the lion should appear on the heraldric design, but it just said a golden lion on a crimson field. So those are the colors we're going to use, is metallic gold and crimson red. I chose lion rampant just because it looks pretty majestic, and I just kind of like the way it looked. In the Dance with Dragons index, the Lannister lion was actually a lion passant, which means walking. And I believe in the show, I don't remember seeing a lion in the show for a while, but I believe that one was rampant as well, standing up. So what we're going to do is get the pages lined up, tape it down, and get started. The last design I did for this one, the coloring looked pretty good. However, it just didn't really look what I called I didn't think it looked sexy enough. It didn't look clean enough. It didn't have a look that I thought was worthy of a house as prestigious and as important to the Game of Thrones books as Lannisters are. And my favorite character is Tyrion, so I thought Lannister deserved a good house, or a good sigil, I mean. So we're going to start using our Prismacolor pens. I'm going to use an 8, and I'm going to start with the main, and that is going to be the thickest line to start with. So here we go. I did not read anything about the Starks before I started doing their banner. And much to my detriment, I kind of spent a lot of time while drawing trying to figure out stories and kind of racking my brain for interesting facts about them. And so in preparation for this video, I actually reread some passages from A World of Ice and Fire, the history book of Westeros. If you haven't read it, it's a weird book because I highly recommend it if you're a huge fan of the books A Song of Ice and Fire. If you only watch the TV series, might not be the most engaging read. It is extremely dry to the point of being almost boring, and this is coming from someone who first read the book after reading the entire first read it after I read the entire series and was starting to do the banner drawings. It was very dense and very difficult to get through, but the second read through was actually pretty fascinating because I was able to piece a lot more together. And so, Lannisters come from the historical character known as Lann the Clever. And there was a house before the Lannisters known as House Castor, and they were known as Castor of the Rock. And Castor of the Rock at some point in Westeros history, just disappeared. And no one really knows what happened to them, but there are a lot of stories. Castor discovered a cave. I can't remember his name. The person who started House Castor. He discovered a cave in the Westerlands that discovered a cave that found a gold vein and started to mine it. And as he mined it and dug further and further into the cave system, turned it into a fortress and fortified it to keep people from breaking in and stealing his claim. And there they lived for a while until Lan the Clever showed up. Now they don't know exactly what happened, but at some point the Castors were no longer living in Casterly Rock. Casterly Rock, that's where it gets its name. Some people think that Lan snuck into the rock and scared the bejesus out of them, pretending to be ghosts, whispering things to them. Some maesters think he actually married into the Castor family. No one quite knows exactly how the Lan the Clever took over Casterly Rock from the Castors. I'm switching over to a 5-pen for the rest of the body. Yeah, at some point, the Castors disappear from Westeros. And the Lannisters have been living in Casterly Rock ever since. One thing I thought was interesting was they actually did have at one point their own Valyrian sword. Like many great houses in Westeros, it was a sign of strength. I would say a sign of dignity and status to have your own family Valyrian sword. The Starks had ice. The Tarleys have, I can't remember the name. It's Heartsbane is the name of their sword. The Lannisters bought a sword that could have, they said the amount of gold they paid for it could have paid for a small army. And that one was called Bright Roar. Now, Bright Roar was last seen, I don't remember the ancestor, but he went to one. There was a Lannister ancestor that voyaged to Old Valyria after the Doom, and promised to plunder it for all the wealth and secrets that were lost within. But Valyria is a cursed place, and he never made it back. Nor did Brightstar, nor did the fleet. So sadly, a really nice Valyrian sword just went lost. And the Valyrian swords of Westeros actually have their own a lot of history there, which is pretty interesting to follow through on. The lion in heraldry is actually one of the most commonly used animals in heraldric design. So much so that lions actually have several different variations. Like I said, the book showed a lion passant, which was walking. There's also the variation of this is rampant, and if the lion was looking backwards, it would be rampant regardant. If the lion was looking at the viewer, that'd be called guardant. And if it had a forked tail instead of a single tail, which I have, it'd be called a Q forchi. I think I'm butchering that. Heraldry, the descriptions, I believe, are derived from French. I do not have a background in French, or I just don't have any background in French other than 6th grade French, so I cannot pronounce French words to save my life. So if I say something, use it or describe a heraldric design that is of French origin, I will probably butcher it, so forgive me. If I were to, and I'm not going to do this, but if I were to color the claws and the tongue different, the description would be armed and languid. I believe that's how you say it. And the tongue is sticking out for this one, because that's pretty common of lions, and it's a choice. It's just a stylistic choice that I decided to go with. And I actually looked up the two houses, Yorks and the Lancasters, two families that were involved in England's War of the Roses, and both of them actually had lions on their banners. And it was actually House Lancaster that had a design that was almost, I would say almost identical to Lannister. And their banner was three, if I remember correctly, 3 lions passant regardant. So 3 lions walking past, looking at the viewer. And they were gold lions on a crimson field. So the colors are pretty much the same as House Lannister, except there's 3 lions instead of 1. And so it's definitely not an accident for that. So that was pretty quick work with the drawing. So we're going to move right on into the coloring.